Good morning, peeps, and welcome to Woke AF Daily with me, your girl, Danielle Moody, recording from the home bunker. Folks, you know what we have come to realize with each and every passing day is that elections do, in fact, have consequences. And elections are important, not just for our day-to-day, but for the health and well-being and preservation of our democracy, which is crumbling with each and every passing day. Case in point, let's look at what the absolute fuck was happening in the Senate Help Committee this week. My God, I swear to you folks, when I come back out into the world to engage in the news after taking some much-needed time to celebrate my birthday, recenter, and ground, it's like I just want to go back, build a tiny home in the woods, and be done with this place, honestly. So GOP Senator Markwayne Mullin, which also Markwayne, give me a break. Anyway, he decided in the midst of the Senate Help Committee, where they were discussing labor unions and the Teamsters president, Sean O'Brien, was there to testify before the committee. Markwayne Mullin must have had some type of flashback to high school where he thought that it was appropriate for a sitting senator to challenge the Teamster president to a fight. Yes, folks, let me just say that again. That a sitting United States senator thought that it was appropriate for him to challenge someone who sent a mean tweet about him to a fight. I want to express that this man, Senator Mullin, is not even the least bit embarrassed. He goes on Fox News later that day because, of course, all of this is a performance. All of this is the performance of toxic masculinity for his toxic constituency that put this kind of person in office to represent them. Then you look around at these states that have these kind of representatives and you look at where they are in education, you look at where they are in jobs, you look at where they are in health and wellness, you look at all of these things and you wonder why their demographics look the way that they do. So Bernie Sanders tried to get the committee hearing back on the rails after Mullin throws it off the rails by saying, "You're a United States senator." But this motherfucker goes on Fox and says that that is Oklahoma values. To be an ignorant bully? That's the values of that state? Like, I don't understand, folks, who the people are that vote and send this kind of trash to Congress. I genuinely don't understand it. I used to have such esteem, hold Congress, hold representatives, hold senators in such esteem. I tell you all the time about working on Capitol Hill, about the first time that I stepped foot on Capitol Hill and the pride and the history as you're walking through those hallways. And this is the fucking sewer rats that are there now. It's despicable and so unbecoming, but just so on fucking brand for the disaster that America has become because of Donald Trump. I'm telling you, I really hope that people are heeding the warning that Hillary Clinton offered on The View a week or so ago, where she said, if Donald Trump is reelected, America is done. She tried to warn us in 2016, but America hates listening to women, right? Particularly those that are smart and powerful. So I pray to God that people are paying attention and not just shrugging off the shit that Donald Trump has been saying at his rallies and on the campaign trail, where he's talking about the fact that if he is reelected, he is going to what? Detain the people who don't like him, right? Yes. That he is going to throw those people in jail, that he's going to deport them, that he's going to build tents for migrants, that he's going to persecute and indict all the people that he doesn't like, that he's going to gut the Department of Justice. He's saying all of these things, taking all of these authoritarian actions. And just in case you think that this is all a joke, I want you to understand that there is $1 billion that has been invested in the Heritage Foundation. You can go look it up, heritagefoundation.org, and see their 2025 plan, where they have already in place all of the people that they're going to fill up our departments with so that they can dismantle them from the inside out. That in the first 100 days of a Trump administration, we are done. Democracy is finished and the Constitution is toilet paper. He is saying all of these things out loud. And just a reminder, this week in the New York Times, Jamelle Bouie wrote a piece where he says very clearly that everything that Donald Trump said that he was going to do when he was elected in 2016, he did. So when people tell you who they are, fucking believe them the first time. We do not need a repeat because, again, this will be the last time. Donald Trump gets in, he's not leaving. And just like we learned from testimony from Jenna Ellis, he had no plans to leave the last time. So, folks, understand that elections, dear friends, have consequences. You don't get multiple bites at the apple. Coming up next on the show today is the executive director of the Power Coalition for Equity and Justice, Ashley Shelton, who will talk about what is happening in Louisiana politics, why we should be paying attention, and why it matters that we invest in the Democratic Party, not just in the areas that are blue, but that we build a pipeline in the areas that are red as well.
With the holiday season upon us, the increase in traveling, shopping, and connecting online can significantly increase the opportunity for identity theft. Helping protect your identity and finances with LifeLock can lower the risk of identity thieves from draining your accounts, opening new loans in your name, and damaging your financial future. LifeLock detects and alerts you to the threats you might overlook during the busy holiday season. But if you do experience ID theft, a U.S.-based restoration specialist dedicated to your case will provide expert-level service to help resolve the issue on your behalf. And all plans are backed by the LifeLock $1 Million Protection Package, with stolen fund reimbursement up to the limits of your plan. Protecting your identity and finances is invaluable. So is the peace of mind that comes with it. Join LifeLock today and save up to 25% off your first year at LifeLock.com/news. That's LifeLock.com/news to save 25% your first year. LifeLock. Identity theft protection starts here.
We lie about who we sleep with.
It's not who we sleep with. It's who we love.
Matt Bomer and Jonathan Bailey star in the new Showtime original limited series, Fellow Travelers.
Do you like it this way? So all this pretending.
This show is about a revolution to be loved.
It's intoxicating. It's expansive.
An epic political thriller love story.
Spellbinding and all things dramatic.
You don't want to miss it.
Don't miss the series premiere of Fellow Travelers, streaming October 27th, only on the Paramount Plus with Showtime plan.
When you call Consumer Cellular's customer support to discuss our affordable and flexible phone plans, it's like you're calling the Declaration of Independence or a hot dog at a baseball game. Because Consumer Cellular's customer support is based entirely in the United States. And Consumer Cellular's customer support agents are from where you're from. The same small town that you're from. The one that stretches from California to Maine, Minnesota to Corpus Christi, Texas. The one that cares about its neighbors and lights fireworks. Legal ones, in the street. So the next time you want to make a phone call that feels like an American flag waving at an air show at magic hour, give us a call. Even if it's for no reason at all except to exchange barbecue sauce recipes like a couple of Americans. Or make jokes about Canadians. LOL, just kidding. We love Canadians. They're our neighbors. Consumer Cellular. When freedom calls, we're here to answer. Call us at 1-888-FREEDOM.
Folks, I am very excited to welcome to Woke AF Daily Ashley Shelton, who is the executive director of Power Coalition for Equity and Justice and has been mobilizing Black communities across Louisiana parishes for years. Let's just jump right in, Ashley. Before we started recording, I was telling you that I have visited now your state twice this fall after having never visited. And, as a person from the East Coast, I think that there are a lot of generalizations that are made about the South, right? Like that when folks see right-wing governors and mayors get elected, they say, well, the people get what they vote for, right? And there is this natural blame game that happens largely put on the shoulders and the backs of Black people. Right? They should have showed up. Put on young people. We can't count on their vote. So tell us what it is that you think that folks get wrong when they're making those blanket assertions.
Yeah, I think, there's so many things that are wrong about those thoughts and the way that people kind of try to unpack it and figure out who's at fault. I mean, the reality is that we had, one of the lowest voter turnout rates for this state in a very long time. And it was Black and white voters. Black folks make up a third of the state, but there were plenty of folks that stayed home across the board. And I think Black voters, we also don't want to talk about poverty and the power of poverty, because folks are like, well, what happened? I was like, racism and crushing poverty, apathy led by crushing poverty. And we have to be real about like what that looks like in some Southern states, especially as Louisiana and Mississippi, are on a consistent race to the bottom, and we're the second poorest state in the country. And so when you start, and so it doesn't, make it okay that folks didn't turn out. What I do think is important is that what it does say is that people are experiencing a lot of pain in their lives. And even though we have had so many successes with voters in the state of Louisiana, working with our partner Voice of the Experience, we have ended non-unanimous juries with a 64% vote of voters across the state. And in this practice that only Louisiana and Oregon had in place, we have reenfranchised formerly incarcerated people. We have expanded voting rights for the last 5 years, all of these things that are uncommon in the South, but we've been able to have those wins. But even in the face of those wins, I think that, they're incremental, right? For the people that are living in a poor state, trying to access jobs, outcomes, and better salaries. And the reality is that the jobs just are not there. And the reality is that their experience, again, it's just a lot of pain. And so you can't look past that and just say, oh, it's their fault. Well, the reality is that, again, people are going through a lot. And I don't believe in shaming voters and blaming them. I think at the end of the day, it's like, we've got to go continue to do the work we've been doing, which is listening. Like, we've got to go back into community and do that deep listening so that we understand where people are. Because I think that, again, I know, because I've done this job since 2015 and very proudly have worked with voters and Black voters in particular across this state. And we have done some really powerful things, including about to realize a second majority congressional seat. And of course, lots of folks have called into question, well, if you can't turn people out for a governor's race, how are you going to do it for these congressional seats? And, I think at the end of the day, power is power. The voters, Black voters in this state fought for that seat. And they're going to show up for this seat. And so I think, I think it's about all the journey and the process that people go through. And I think that we've got work to do. I mean, that's the bottom line. We've got to do some more listening. We've got to, do like our friends in Georgia, start to really understand like what is going to get someone to come out of their house and go vote on election day.
And that's what I was going to say is that, what we've seen over the past couple of cycles, right, is that in, Georgia, we've seen that Georgia did not turn blue overnight, right? That there has been a lot of elbow grease and work over decades to get Georgia to where it has been a linchpin in holding on to the Senate, right? Yes. For Democrats, where it has been a place that we have seen, well, wait a minute. Why haven't we been investing in these places? Why hasn't the National Democratic Party been investing in these places that you've just allowed the Republican Party to run roughshod in. And so when you talk about the pains and the trauma, can you speak to, when you are listening to folks, what are they offering, right? That the larger mechanism of party is essentially trying to blow past and just shuffle them into a voting booth.
I think that what they're missing is that, when we're, the Power Coalition for Equity and Justice is our C3. We do have a C4, Power Coalition for Electoral Justice. But in our C3 work, when we're doing that deep listening in communities, what we're hearing is that there's so much low hanging fruit that nobody's addressing, right? Whether it's fines and fees that keep people in a never ending cycle of poverty and criminalization, or addressing the 0 to 3 childcare, pipeline and access to seats, and making things accessible to the folks in communities so that they can attain better jobs and actually have safe, thoughtful, curriculum-based education for their children. These are all of the things that we don't want to talk about, but these are the things that we have been winning and bringing home on a consistent basis over the last several years. And it has mattered to those voters in a way that we have been able to consistently be able to have a decent turnout. But I do think that there are a couple of other, things that, the machine kind of collapsed around us. I mean, we are a C3 nonpartisan organization, focused on Black and brown voters in the state of Louisiana, in particular, infrequent. And so we're talking to the voters nobody's talking to. And so if the campaigns aren't talking to voters, if the party isn't talking to voters, and the only one of the few groups is Power Coalition, and all of our partners are the only people knocking doors, making phone calls, sending the text messages, doing events, and trying to engage folks in early voting, regranting. We've regranted over 500,000, and we'll do way more than that before November 18th. And so again, if we're the only, it just shows that we can't do this by ourselves, and we need more. There has to be. There was no energy for this election.
Yeah,
I mean, nobody even knew anything was happening, and that was intentional. And also too, there's the citizen in me is also really frustrated that they didn't even spend any money, and they did it on purpose. And not that I need them to spend money, but that money is a part of how people know, or what the signs are, that there's an election coming up. There's a drumbeat to it. And that drumbeat just never, it never came to be. And even when we put the resources, we've done radio, billboards, digital ads, streaming apps. I mean, we've done all the things to try to engage folks as much as possible. And what we know is that at the end of the day, there just wasn't enough momentum and energy that we could create on our own. And so, I do think that one of the things that we know is that when we listen, people move, right? They get more engaged. And that and one of the reasons we've been able to be so successful in the past is that nobody's talking to Black and brown voters, nobody. And especially if you're an infrequent voter. And so we've had those successes of changing infrequent voters to chronic voters, and being able to do this work in a way that has really, made significant change in the South. But I do feel like, in Louisiana in particular, Black and brown voters need a political home. And we've tried to be that political home, because they're not being served. It doesn't feel like they're being served in any way in the traditional political infrastructure. And so how are we making sure that their voices are heard? Why are we one of the most, we're one of the richest places in natural resources, but the poorest places in the whole, in the whole country, the most incarcerated place in the whole country, actually per capita of the world, right? So all of these things that don't make sense in the midst of such a rich state with so many assets, and then constantly putting industry before people. And so that's the work that has to happen, is that, we have to keep bringing people forward, through a process of helping them to see, because I think nobody talks about the fact that things, things were better, but they weren't better, they hadn't gotten, better enough for it to really matter to people in the ways that they wanted. And then I think nobody talks about the real ugly part of this, which is that things can get worse. And I don't think we ever talk about what worse looks like. And nor do we want to dwell on that either, right? I don't want to give it, give it life, but I do feel like that's also a part of this conversation. and also talking about leadership. I've been frustrated. I tell folks all the time, we want leadership to be a positive value, and leadership, it
Mm-hmm.
can also be negative. It can also be there to hold the status quo. And at some point we have to look at how we got here, and that all the folks that are in unbelievable positions to be able to get things done. I mean, this is an off year. I don't understand how, when almost 45 other states to have nothing going on this year. And it's, Louisiana, Mississippi, Tennessee, Virginia. It's a handful of us that have races. And you mean to tell me you can't raise money? You can't,
Right.
that doesn't fly. That doesn't fly.
We lie about who we sleep with.
It's not who we sleep with, it's who we love.
Matt Bomer and Jonathan Bailey star in the new Showtime original limited series, Fellow Travelers.
Do you like it this way? It's all this pretending.
This show is about a revolution to be loved.
It's intoxicating, it's expansive.
An epic political thriller love story.
Spellbinding and all things dramatic.
You don't want to miss it.
Don't miss the series premiere of Fellow Travelers, streaming October 27th, only on the Paramount Plus with Showtime plan.
The holidays are the busiest time of the year for your business, so don't get stuck worrying about shipping orders. Let ShipStation do the heavy lifting. Whether you're shipping from your house or multiple warehouses, ShipStation has the tools and features to boost your holiday profitability. ShipStation lets you easily automate shipping tasks like printing labels and comparing rates while managing orders from everywhere you sell online in one simple dashboard. And ShipStation can help no matter how big your business grows, with enterprise solutions that reduce warehouse costs and improve efficiency. And when it comes to those inevitable holiday returns, ShipStation automatically gathers customer feedback and recommends exchange items. So even if your customers buy the wrong size or color, they'll still have a great experience. Optimize every shipment this holiday season automatically. Go to ShipStation.com and use code LEADERS today to sign up for your free 60-day trial. That's ShipStation.com, code LEADERS.
This holiday season, the best gift you can give yourself and those you love is your wellness. So kick off the holiday season feeling amazing by going to Symbiotica for their Black Friday sale. Symbiotica offers plant-based products and supplements that'll help your body thrive, and now is the time to stock up. Visit Symbiotica.com and use code BF25 for 25% off and free shipping. That's CYMBIOTIKA.com, code BF25. Symbiotica.com, code BF25.
It's interesting. The other day, I interviewed an investigative reporter who was covering the Louisiana Fifth Circuit and the disturbing case that came out of there about how these judges who are elected decided for 13 years to ignore the pleas of people that said that they were wrongfully convicted. It's a central part of their job. And what I realize is that when we see stories like this, right, both people inside the state and outside the state say, well, that's Louisiana. And I'm wondering how that narrative shifts if it is something that is internalized by the people of your state that are just like, well, they've never shown up for us, right? They lock us up, they throw away the key, right? Never to be seen or heard from again. They've destroyed families. There's a reason why Louisiana is one of the poorest states, right? And it has largely everything to do with racism and Jim Crow and the way that land ownership has happened, right? Or not happened, or has been stolen, right? Over centuries. And so I wonder about how important it is to not only to be able to tell the truth, right? To be able to shift the narrative that it isn't just the lies of racism that says that there is something that is wrong or deficient in Black people, but there is something that is wrong and deficient in white supremacy that has fed a larger monster, right, that has taken over your state.
No, absolutely. And I think that, one of the things that's also frustrating is that, out of the Deep South states, right, Louisiana has been able to do some really hard things that we're now starting to see Mississippi addressing, reenfranchisement. We're starting to see the courts, kind of helping us move the needle on things. But I do think that what was such a missed opportunity in this moment is that, there's no pipeline for leadership development. There's no, like there are all these things that, that have to be, that just have to be built. And I think for Power Coalition, I can't live one more year where 50% of every elected official goes unchallenged at the state level, because there's no one challenging them, right? Like I can't continue to live in a space where we're not developing a bench and a field strategy, like a field that you can touch, see, and feel, that is really connected to folks, and there's real, deep connective tissue. And again, we've been building that, and we have so much of it, which is why, again, we've been able to do really hard things in Louisiana. But again, now we're looking at 4 years of, a really difficult leadership style that does not prioritize the needs of anybody, much less Black people, Black and brown people. And then, and then also too, no one talking about the economic realities of what this kind of leadership is going to do to a state like Louisiana. The majority of our state tax base comes from Baton Rouge South. So Baton Rouge and New Orleans being the largest of the cities in the southern part of the state. Whatever's not industry is hospitality. And so then you have a governor that is, don't say gay, we're banning books, we're doing all of these things. And it's like all of a sudden the Super Bowl is not happening in New Orleans anymore in 2024 or 25, whenever it's supposed to happen in New Orleans. All of a sudden tourism is taking a hit. And we saw that in Florida.
Yeah.
But the difference is that Louisiana Florida and Louisiana are not in any way the same. And also Florida is not nearly as poor as us. And I think that there's still going to be some backlash that we see from all of those businesses that were destroyed or decimated by, you could see it on TV that Florida was suffering, right? And also as someone that goes to Florida a lot for the beaches and to spend time with my family, I haven't gone in 2 years, and I don't want to go. I don't feel safe there, and I don't want people to feel that same way about Louisiana, which is why we have to still fight. That's why there's still work to do. We've got a runoff on November 18th, and I just left Southern University where there was a second line. They had about 300 students, in the street, walking to vote coming, which is like the 50th, anniversary of vote coming for Southern University. And so really proud to be with these young people and just reminded that we've got a lot of work to do, but, there are young people that are with us, that are fighting, that are understanding what work has to be done. And, and even talking to folks like Lieutenant General Honore, who, is a loved Louisiana native, and who now lives here. But he just talks about democracy is fragile. And if we lose democracy, we'll never get it back. And he said, and yes, there's lots of stuff that's broken, but democracy is not broken. The only way that it works is if you vote. And I was, just sharing with him, I was like, I think that's the most profound, simple breakdown of what we're, what's necessary, and that what gets in the way of democracy is the fact that people are hurting. We're not creating the kind of policies and opportunities that, make people feel like they're a part of something bigger than themselves. And so we've got work to do. And I do, feel like, again, we've seen so many successes. We saw the election of Devontae Lewis, who is one of the youngest and the first openly gay, Black man to actually win a public service commission seat, which makes him the highest ranking Black elected official in the state. And so
amazing,
so it is to say that we know that our work works, right? And we know that we're getting things done. But when you talk about a statewide election with every House seat, every Senate seat, and multiple municipal races, sheriffs, et cetera, it takes more than, it takes more than just one vehicle being the voice out there trying to move people and trying to help people believe in what I know we've won and what we've made better. And that we had Medicaid expansion when no one else had Medicaid expansion in the Deep South. Like I said, we've expanded voting rights instead of, destroying voting rights, right? And so even as those suppression bills did happen and move through our legislature, we had a governor that could veto those bills. And so now we're moving into whatever this new administration will be, and we've got work to do. We know we'll be playing some defense.
Tell us with the few minutes that we have left, for those folks that are listening that are not in your state but are like they want something to do. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, how can they be of support, be of service to aid your organization in sounding the alarm why people need to participate, on unpacking folks' stories and getting, to this place of feeling heard and seen, and then choosing to vote. What can outside folks do?
Well, the biggest thing I always tell folks is don't give up on the South, right? Because I truly believe if you can't figure it out here, you won't figure it out anywhere. If all the bad things in this country were seeded by ALEC and other institutions in the Deep South, and then brought whole scale to the rest of the country in a very short period of time, then all the good things also can be seeded here and brought whole scale to the rest of the country. And so so we need everyone to not act like we're a non-factor, right? Because we're actually not a non-factor, because in fact, the folks with some of the most money and power, are using us to, see these ridiculous policies that are hurting our communities. The other thing I would say is also support organizations like Power Coalition and other state civic engagement tables and folks that are actually working on the ground. I think that people misunderstand how hard it is to actually knock doors and, make those phone calls. I think we've had almost 42 events, this election season all across the state. Like, that is the hardest part of the work to do. And so, definitely support us, powercoalition.org. You can volunteer to phone bank. Your phone number gets cloaked. You can phone back anybody in Louisiana you want to, but also to support our efforts, more broadly through financial support and also talking to your family members. We know that, so many of our stories start in the South. And so, it's on all of us. We've been asking everyone, like, call a friend, bring a friend, commit to take 10 people through the voting process, right? So that we can make sure that, we're going back to those old school tactics of, mama.
They worked then, they worked. So
mama needs to call.
yeah, they absolutely work. Well, Ashley Shelton, thank you so much for the work that you are doing, for the work that Power Coalition is doing, for reminding people that are listening to this show not to give up on the South, not to just chalk it up, because Republicans sure as hell have not. So really, really, really appreciate you. Power to the people, and to all the people power. Get woke and stay woke as fuck.